Hi, today I'm going to be talking about how I turn fish waste into fertilizer. This video is going to be a combination of 3 different shoots that I took of myself. The first one I shot a couple months ago when I showed myself dumping fish JLF onto some plants, including some tomatoes and cucumbers. And this second video I shot this morning, just showing how the plants look after 2 months. And the third one I'm shooting now, which is showing you how I made that fish waste, JLF. So first off, JLF stands for Jadam Liquid Fertilizer. And so I picked up some fish waste today, and let's show how I put it together. Let me say that you can find fish waste for free. It really depends on the place you go to. You just go to whatever seafood place that you can, and you just say, can I take your fish waste? And so they'll say one of two things, which is, sure, here you go. Do you have a bucket? And another thing that they could say is, well, we turn, our waste into salmon burgers or something like that. But we do sell blah, blah, blah for... And so everything that I've used so far has been free. But for the purposes of this video, I went and I purchased some fish waste so you can see what it looks like when you purchase it. For the free stuff, I don't have any to show you right now that's fresh, because the last time I went to the place, they had sold out and they closed the store early. And so, yeah, I can't show it to you, but I can describe it. You can imagine a full salmon. I'm using my other hand to hold the camera, but a full, a whole salmon, head to tail, but like filleted. You can imagine what that would look like. I can get a bunch of that for free at this one particular place. And this is what it looks like when it costs money. They do have halibut waste that you can purchase. So it looks like this. And this piece right here is $5. Now this would probably make a good broth. So you could eat this. I mean, I'm sure most people eat it. Find some way to eat it. And this guy, apparently they don't use the salmon heads, but even the folks that process their fish waste will still sell you the head for $2. So this is what a $2 salmon head looks like. And this is $5 halibut. So when you consider how much fertilizer this will make, you can still imagine it is cheaper than a product, a fertilizer that you would buy from the store. Also, when I'm going to my place that I get it for free, I don't just take their fish and run. I do buy fish. So I want to give them business, and I love fish also, and it's cheap. So I do buy fish, and I pick up, and then I take the free stuff that they're willing to give me. The benefit of buying fish waste is that you don't feel obligated to buy anything else. So this is, when you buy fish waste, it's like $7 if you get this much. And if you get free fish waste, that could cost you like 20 or some bucks because you decide to buy a bunch of fish on top of the free stuff. So you can, you are eating the fish. There's a value in it. but you can also skip a meal. Think about all the people on the OMAD diet now. It's the new fad. Or you can just eat a cheaper meal. So, you know, but anyway, you can reason to yourself. Also, the place where I get it for free, it's further away. And so I really only go there if I'm already passing through. But if I was to go out of my way to pick up fish there, it might be cheaper for me to just go local, spend $7 and save money on gas. So yeah, it's another way to look at it. But typically I'm passing through, so I'm not really wasting gas. I think I'm holding true to Jadam when I say when you make this in a bucket like this, you want the fish to be about 50% of the bucket, and then you want to fill the other 50% with water. I don't think this is quite 50%. It looked bigger when it was frozen, but I think it's going to be good enough. And if I wanted to, I can always add stuff later. So I'm going to fill this with water. It's going to suck to carry this once it's full, so keep in mind you might want to fill it up at the place you're going to be storing it. By the way, the flies that are being attracted to this bucket right now, I don't think they're attracted to the fresh fish. This is the bucket that I think I used 2 months ago, so they're smelling the rotten fish from the last batch. Because I'm using this, I've used this bucket before, there's probably already kinds of microbes sitting on the bucket that's going to help jumpstart the decomposition of this fish. I'm not on flat land, so that's annoying. But I also have to move this later. Okay, so what else do I add to this? And I am touching my camera with my fish hands. Okay. So this is my own kind of little take on this. I'm adding IMO2 that I collected from my forest. Typically, so I pretty much add like this much. I like smelling it before I use it. It smells like it smells like miso, actually. If you know what miso smells like. And I don't mean you know, like the powdered miso. I mean, like if you buy actual miso that's typically made with fermented beans or something, that miso. It kind of smells like that. God, it smells like something else. It also smells like mushroom, but it smelled more like mushroom in the beginning, and it's kind of evolved into a more fermented miso like smell. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to maneuver this. Okay, I'm gonna put this back on. I'm trying to remember what officially a jump says to add to that. It might just be ground debris. So what I have here is forest debris that I've collected during my travels. So this might be like Miller Sylvania. I don't know. I don't have them labeled. But like you could, so this would be an example of what officially Jadam says to add. So we're putting forest microbes in there. And when I see one that's sandy, I might think that this is like Mount Rainier or something. And I don't typically add this. I think I really have just added IMO2. The IMO2 has sugar in it, so it's kind of like giving a jump start, I think, to the mushrooms, or the microbes. I like to improve how I do this. I like to not use plastic. I don't like these plastic buckets, and I should collect this in those cotton little baggies that you can, how you can buy cotton bags now to collect your produce in the store. I really need to evolve into that. And so this is basically all I do. When I picked up the free fish waste, I typically get about 2 buckets worth. So, and I wish I had some of that salmon to show, but at least I described it. Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be better if you can submerge this, because that's what you just do with all your ferments. You want to make sure that they're submerged. I'm going to do I guess you could put a rock in there, and then the rock would give you some, add some minerals as well, right? And it's funny because I happen to, when I do collect rocks, I have a video on this, for my landscape. I try to use them like in a decorative fashion. So I have rocks lining right here, this pathway. So, I happen to have a rock right here. And I could put that in there. Pull that down. And if you're going to do that, you want to leave some headspace, right? And who knows, maybe the fish will find a way to get around that anyway. And if you were willing to stick your hand in there later, you'd be able to pull that rock out later. So yes, that is going to develop a smell over time. So that's just how you make it. That's just how I make it, my version. I'm now going to show you me opening, describing what the broken down fish waste is like. You're going to see me pouring it on my vegetables, and then at the very end, you can see what the vegetables look like as of this morning. Here are 4 fish JLF buckets, and I believe the one I'm currently using is this one. Yummy. So this is how out of breath I am from carrying this from behind the coop all the way up here. That's how full it is. Ideally, it would have been maybe a little bit less full for me to be able to carry it a little bit easier and without any risk of it spilling on me. So I'm squatting right next to it, so clearly I have potential to have a really big whiff of it, and it's not too bad. I just have a high tolerance for disgust. I don't think it's as bad as the food waste. The food waste JLF smells like vomit. I'm going to dump this full strength. Placing my camera on my grass Hugo mound. What I did is I just put a little bit next to each plant with some bones, and some meat chunks automatically came out. And I don't particularly care. My kind of me logic is, and this is how I differ from Jadam, is because I have wood chip, a layer of wood chips, I go full strength on my JLFs, knowing how much fluid wood chips can absorb before it even like passes through to the soil level. And I imagine a lot of the fertility will also be, as in the nitrogen and the calcium, will be captured by the wood chips, and maybe with every rain or hand watering, it will release more of the nutrients into the plants. But last time I did something like this around baby kale plants, they were very happy. And what I did last time is I just went full strength on the wood chips. You see little bone pieces that haven't dissolved yet. With official Jadam, you're supposed to create a system where you're only draining out the liquid. Then you, of course, dilute the liquid. I don't remember if it's 1 to 500 or something like that. And you probably do it regularly versus one time like me. But yeah, you have a system where you're just releasing the liquid part, and then you leave the meat and the bones to dissolve indefinitely, because over time it'll eventually all dissolve. And you can keep adding to your bucket or your whatever your system is. You keep adding to it and you keep draining the liquid out of it. And yeah, but I don't have the time or real necessity to work out a system like that myself just yet, because this works for me fine with the wood chips kind of holding the stuff in and with the slow release over time. So I make sure I have a wood chip layer under, then I have my undiluted JLFs, and I think it can be any JLF, and I'll put wood chips on top. And because it's nice and putrid, the animals won't be digging around. But generally when things don't work, it's not because the method is bad, it's because I do something once and then I forget about it. So I don't want to misrepresent any kind of method just because I'm lazy, or it's not so much lazy, it's just being super busy and having such a big garden and getting diverted from fixing up one place to then hopping onto another, to hopping onto another, hopping onto another. And at the end of the day, I think I did enough for it and for this one particular area. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm not meant to grow those plants. Those plants should have been able to make it on their own. And I'm more about the experimentation more than the harvest at this point. I'm more about building soil. And probably the vegetables that I've been growing for the past however many years is really just a gauge. It's not really for me for eating, it's a gauge for me to know how my soil is doing. And can I leave my plants in the ground uncoddled all season and still produce for me? And usually when people do YouTube videos about like what happens when I bury a fish head in the soil, it's usually under a tomato plant. So this is kind of like, there's some tomato plants in here, so it's kind of apples to apples. You know, if it works out, it's like, here's an alternative to burying a fish head. Just pour putrid fish waste on your wood chips. So I'm gonna go get some wood chips now and dump it on the fish waste. Then I'm gonna bring you a little something for a discussion on this versus FAA. Oh yeah, first, before I forget, it's good to do this during or before a rainfall because you want the water to draw your fertilizer down as far as possible. And we tend to get light rains, but even like any rain in June is very welcoming because I'm used to the droughts starting before now. So I probably will supplement it with water at some point, and then I'll stop. Anyway, so here's my experience with KNF, fish amino acid, FAA. I don't have a video showing how to do it because you can find that on Chris Trump's channel. And I essentially did it the same way he did. Equal weight fish waste and sugar. Let it sit in a bucket. But what happened to me is it did not turn into a fish sauce like it's supposed to. It turned into like a fish jerky. And it's possible I didn't let it sit long enough, but I don't think that's the case. I think it was sitting for nearly a year. And besides, I don't see how, maybe even over a year, but I don't see how the jerky would just turn into a liquid anyway, necessarily, because jerky is jerky. Jerky just stays jerky. So it was like nice, sweet smelling fish jerky. And I suppose if you're smart, if that happens to you, then that's a good reason to have like a throwaway blender. Or like, let's say you have a blender. Like I had a Vitamix that just the motor stopped working most of the time, but maybe it would run if I, from time to time. Or whatever reason you replace it. Maybe now you want a vacuum blender. And so now you have this extra blender that you don't want to use or you don't need to use for your food anymore. Then I think it's great to have a blender just for your fertilizer. So the smart thing to do would be to throw your fish jerky, essentially turn it into a liquid. Because what happened to me is after, all of those, hey, what happens when you bury fish head, what happens when you bury a can of sardines, those kinds of videos. What I did is I buried my fish jerky under some kale plants. And I had those kale plants up there. And there's one there that made it, that's going to seed right now. And the other ones didn't make it. And that is because quite immediately a critter came around, dug out all the little fish pieces and disturbing the kill plants in the process, knocking them over. And so with the takeaway message being, fish jerky is like crack cocaine to little critters that live in your yard. And check out this bucket. The remainder of the FAA/fish jerky was sitting in this bucket. And I've never had a critter, of all the funny buckets I have, I've never had a critter chew through a bucket to get to my gook. And that's what it did there. It was on the ground. Who did that? A mouse probably chewed through there and feasted on the fish jerky. It's a combination of sweet, protein, equals crack cocaine. Now, so to get back to the blending thing, if you have it all blended, well, maybe they'll smell it, but they can't like dig it out and like eat it, right? It's just going to be like this candy smell floating in the air, but it's still going to draw their attention, right? And so what would they do? Would they start digging around in it anyway, looking for a meat chunk? I mean, who the heck knows? So if I have a choice between attracting critters to digging around the plants, or repelling them with this putrid smell, which is a bit equivalent to, like, let's say you see salmon dying on a stream, at a stream. Right, so like let's say you're emulating, people like to say I'm emulating nature, right? So fish swim upstream, spawn, die, and you see all the carcasses, and there's that fish smell. Like, nothing's eating those fish carcasses. They're just gonna rot in place. So that's what we're emulating here, is just like a putrid fish smell that repels the critters. I think that KNF might work because a lot of the inputs have sugar in it, straight up. If you watch enough gardening videos like I do, you might hear a person say, well, you know, you could just throw sugar on your plants, or the whole point of cover crops is to feed the microbes sugar. So you can kind of just speed up and dump sugar on the soil and kind of bypass the whole cover crop thing. Anyway, so does KNF, if it does work, does it work because of all the medicines and stuff in there? Or is it working because it's filled with sugar and the microbes are loving the sugar? So I think if I really wanted to, you know, I think once I was ready to feed the plants sugar, I think I would just do sugar before I would do KNF. And the KNF is kind of more, those inputs are more for like me to eat. Because I want that medicine, and maybe to put, you know, to do as like a foliar spray and stuff like that. If I had more time, I would do it. I think I would do it a whole lot more. Or once I'm done weeding. I mean, most of my life has been weeding, and so it's kind of, and then making YouTube videos doesn't really help give me more time. So some people will say they prefer KNF because they can eat it. They can eat the inputs. I don't see how that's logical. It seems very arbitrary to me, so that just kind of exits my brain as soon as I hear it. So yeah, so for me, Jadam wins at this point. Yeah, so before doing FAA again, I would probably do a mixture of Jadam and just like liquid sugar, because I'd still be getting the nutrients from the fish, be getting the nitrogen, the calcium. I'd be getting all that broken down. And the whole thing about it being anaerobic, I mean, that's another video. Don't forget that we've broken down the fish with soil microbes, with forest microbes, and there's a large diversity. There shouldn't just be one pathogen that you're introducing to the soil. It's been a while since I showed myself pouring fish waste on some vegetables, and so this is just a status on them. Soon after I applied the fish waste, the plants it was kind of hard on the plants. I wouldn't say that I thought they were going to die or anything. I don't know if I could say that, you know, it was hard on them. I mean, it was also kind of earlier in the year where the nights were still dipping low. So there's lots of reasons why warm, loving vegetables hate our climate. And even now, the nights still hit the 50s. Maybe not tonight, but so yeah, they don't, you know, they won't die, but they don't grow. But also, I don't know if I pointed it out when I filmed that, it's not standard. It's not my standard practice anyway to pour fish waste on young plants. My process is to pour it on the ground maybe in the fall to give it time to soak in, get neutralized by the environment, by microbes, soil microbes, and then plant into it at least a few months after. And the only reason why I poured the fish waste on the young plants is because I hadn't known that I was going to rip out all the quack grass and put vegetables in it this year. I just did it on the fly, and so I didn't have time to fertilize it. And so I was just desperately wanting to get nitrogen in with the vegetables without having to do anything else. So, but I gave it time. And then, yeah, in the last few weeks, I've been very super neglectful. And that's why I'm trying to be a dry farmer. And so I can say, oh, that was intentional. It's not like I'm lazy. It's just I am busy. But yeah. So okay. Let me start by turning the camera away from my smug face. Okay. So here, let me just do like a backup shot. So the camera might have been around here, and I was showing myself pouring. This is that whole area where I was pouring all that gook. And then I come in. I'm going to look at the start over here. So here is a tomato. So this has not been watered. I think I watered it when I planted it, and I might have watered it once or twice since then. Might have watered it in that super duper heat wave. And even that, it wasn't like a ton, because my hose doesn't, if I really, want to take the time, I can pull my hose up there and then like squirt it this way. But I don't like to move my hose around a whole bunch like that, because it always knocks some plants over. So the only way I can water this area is to fill my 2-gallon buckets with water, and then just, yeah. So hand water is the essential theme here. So, okay. So this hasn't really been watered, but you can see how they look. There's some flowers. This is the end of July, and this is very typical for, just so you know, Western Washington. If you don't know, we don't really grow. This is not a tomato growing region, because, like I said about the nights, staying into the 50s until, and here are what the green tomatoes look like. And also, just keep in mind, and then just for comparison, I don't have, I'm not filming at her house, but I have a friend who has tomatoes in a pot. Like, a lot of people grow tomatoes in a pot, and so she's constantly coddling it, she's watering it all the time, and her tomatoes are at the same stage. So I think how, like when they ripen is more about like the evening temperatures, more it is about anything else. It's just our tomatoes like to ripen late. And even if this was a consequence of my fish waste holding it back, this plant still, it smells nice. Like, it's nice tomato smell. But it looks nice. It looks healthy. It looks green. And if anything, if it's behind, I would say that's because of the watering. But clearly the fish waste has not really impacted it. I'm not staking it, so it's fallen over a bit. There was some like volunteer radish that got in here, and I don't know where he's coming from. So yeah, so this is this tomato. I like to look at the foliage though, when I'm studying the health of a plant, see like how deep green it is. I'm not seeing any signs of disease or weakness. And this is growing into the ground. The only difference between this ground and the rest of my ground is this ground wasn't scraped off like the flat areas during the terracing. So it wasn't like totally destroyed like other parts, but it's still virgin soil. There's a little yellow there, and this camera's gonna pick it up. In general, it looks fine. So now onto this cucumber that's weaving into it. So this was, yeah, all of these were babies when I poured the fish waste on it. And I always put plants in, I never remember what they are. So I just wait for them to fruit. This looks like this is a pickling cucumber. Got it, so it's must be there. A pickling cucumber. So he is doing fine. And he is, again, I would say he looks healthy. And if he's behind, it's only because I'm not watering him. Not because he looks like his health. There's anything wrong with his health or anything. He's got nice dark green leaves. Here's another tomato. It's got little green tomatoes. Which are probably more impacted by not being watered than anything else. This plant doesn't look like it was tortured from that fish waste. Nope. And then also right next to me are some peppers. I have no idea. I thought I left all the tags of my peppers, and it looks like I didn't. So, oh well. But here is a pepper plant, pretty loaded. This is like a single, this is funny, it's a single banana pepper, I guess. And that one, here is another tomato. I don't have anything new to say about this. Again, doesn't look very unhappy or anything. Taking a little snack break. Oh, this looks like this is a honey cayenne. And here's this pepper. And then here is this, here's another cucumber. This is one of those slicers. But this one is quite interesting. This cucumber plant has a lot of mature cucumbers that I need to harvest like now. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's like 5. And so this one, this plant, right? It's not putting on the fruit late. It's just that I could tell I just haven't been out here harvesting it, so they're almost like too mature. Like this almost looks like you want to leave it for seed collecting. It's almost too ripe, but I'll still cut that up. See, and here is some quackgrass. As you can see, this was quackgrass. And just for like a kind of neat, kind of, I'm gonna digress. If you want to know if you have quackgrass, the quackgrass has this like has a little fold at the tip. And so I take my quackgrass and I pile it up to feed the worms. Here is my coffee in a pot. This is where I'm going to put my cucumbers. I also wanted to show this pretty cauliflower. I had no idea what I put here. It looks like it's purple. It's turning purple. And it also looks like it is rotting, starting to rot. So yeah, I'm gonna harvest this also this morning. But I also wanted to put this on film so you can just see another example of a plant that's growing dry. This is, I don't remember though if I put any gook here or if it just happens that it lucked out being there. This is a currant that has, so I did put food waste gook right here around this currant. And is it possible that it's pulling some of that over there? I think it's too far. I don't think it was benefiting from any food waste here. And let's see if we have any signs of this food waste if I dig in here. It just becomes food and it disappears. Let's try over here. But you know, yeah, it's not a secret. I mean, people make videos of this all the time. What happened to my buried food waste? It is gone. So, yeah, but this wasn't buried. It was just on the surface. And I have wood chips under and over them. And the reason why I think that's too far away is because there's a cabbage that's growing right next to this tree that had a bunch of free inputs put around it. We're talking like, mostly though, juice pulp, and the juice pulp is very much like the food waste. Except instead of it being in my own collection, it was in the dumpster behind a juice bar. And then chicken manure. But you know, once you put chicken manure on anything, you can't really like say anything else was the cause of growth, because chicken manure just makes everything go crazy. And so this cabbage, totally not watered at all. It's close enough to this tree that had the inputs around it that I for sure think that is benefiting from that versus that little cabbage that's too far away, a little too far away. And so that's why he's smaller than this guy. And that's why, so when you do experiments like that, you can see, okay, maybe how far does that influence go. And man, these wildflower mixes, they last the whole season. So those are all from wildflower mix. Look at that. And the reason why they're in this clump, but you don't see them there, is because this is where a mole brought soil to the surface. And so, yeah, seeds prefer to germinate in soil, not directly in wood chips. So, look at that. I love seeing these little guys. This little guy's trying to be a tree right here. And sometimes I take these little guys and I just move them. So I am my own tree plant nursery.